insist that the torch go through Tibet, that it go to Mount Everest and through Tibet and its way back to Beijing. That's the biggest insult, I think, of all. The world should not allow that to happen.
Speaker, I thank the gentlelady for yielding, and I'm pleased to join the Speaker of the House today as an original co-sponsor of this important legislation to address the rights of the people of Tibet.
I want to ask the rioters why they did it. I really can't understand why the rioters killed innocent civilians.
One of the victims, Siren Droga, came from Chikaze. Siren's aunt and brother rushed all the way to Lhasa.
We lost a girl who is so good.
She was the smartest girl we have. It's extremely tragic.
Across the globe, people are speaking out in support of the people of Tibet, and today Congress is making a strong statement. And no one outside Tibet has been more clear and more eloquent than the Speaker of the House.
These 5 young girls were killed in the tragic fire. Many Lhasa residents are mourning the death of the 5 workers in the clothing store. Many mourners are strangers of the innocent victims.
I recently had the honor to join the Speaker as a member of a congressional delegation to India. We were with the spiritual leader, the Dalai Lama, and we saw and heard thousands of Tibetan refugees. Cheering America, I am pleased to say, but pleading with us not to forget Tibet. Tibet has been under the heavy hand of China for almost 5 decades, and the situation has deteriorated.
The local police acted quickly, trying to prevent the situation from deteriorating. They exercised maximum restraint in the face of the rioters, and they were always on the defensive.
With China brutally suppressing Tibetans and systematically and relentlessly eradicating Tibetan culture. Our delegation was moved to see and hear the pleadings of Tibetans of all ages.
This injured police officer, Liu Dingwei, is now in hospital. He had just become a policeman in Tibet last December. But the young police officer was severely hurt trying to put a stop to the riots. This March the 13th was Liu's 19th birthday. But on March the 14th, the riots broke out near Ramosh Temple in Lhasa.
Who have braved Himalayan crossings to escape oppression, some weeks ago, some years ago. And the Dalai Lama gives them hope.
Many young police officers, such as Liu, responded to the call for help to restore calm to the area and stop the rioters. But Liu and his fellow policemen held their ground. Despite being pelted by rocks and suffering injuries, they tried to deal with the hostile mob.
And calls on the world not to forget those who have fled and those who are left in Tibet. And we too should give.
The order we receive is that we should never fight back even if we're beaten, never retort even if cursed.
The armed police officers exercised maximum restraint, but the mobsters showed no mercy. Liu's head was seriously wounded in a barrage of stones. He almost fainted.
I have in my office a crayon-drawn Tibetan flag given to me during our delegation's visit to the Tibetan Children's Village, and I keep this flag in my office because it reminds me of the human toll of this situation.
I was hit on the head. I was already half conscious by then, but someone drew out his dagger and slashed me.
The squad leader rescued half-conscious Liu Dingwei from the hands of the mobsters and escorted him to the hospital. Medical examination showed that Liu Dingwei's hip is seriously wounded. The cuts were so deep that his bones were exposed and the muscles were also parted.
Children and adults flee the villages of Tibet, cross the highest range of mountains in the world to reach the promise of a life where they can preserve their culture and have freedom.
His head was scratched. The 19-year-old has not told his parents and grandfather that he was injured and hospitalized. And his love for Lhasa remains unchanged, despite the experience in the riots on March the 14th.
I like Lhasa and Tibetan people. On March the 14th, I saw Tibetan compatriots rescue our armed police officers.
I'm pleased that all the members of this important trip joined the Speaker in introducing this resolution. Both Democrats and Republicans agree that the Chinese government needs to end the crackdown on the violent crackdown on non-violent Tibetan protesters.
Ma Ying-she was seriously wounded. She has been lying here in the ward of Lhasa's No. 2 People's Hospital for a week. The 36-year-old is a restaurant owner. 15 days after her restaurant opened for business, unexpected catastrophe befell.
Furthermore, it's long past time for the Chinese government to begin. May I ask for 30 more seconds? May I have 30?
Gentleman has additional 30 seconds.
A group of 20 or 30 people stormed into my restaurant. They were holding thick sticks and daggers and smashed the restaurant with stones. We hid on the second floor. After they smashed up the first floor, 7 or 8 people swarmed upstairs and pushed me out of the window on the second floor.
Long past time for the Chinese government to begin without preconditions, a dialogue with His Holiness the Dalai Lama.
Ma Ying-she was pushed out of a second-floor window by the rioters. Her backbone was severely injured. Doctors say she has to stay in bed for at least half a year and may end up paralyzed. Her business and a loan of tens of thousands yuan went up in flames, set alight by mobs.
And ensure that human rights and dignity of all Tibetans are protected, to address the legitimate grievances of the Tibetan people, to safeguard the people and their distinctive identity.
My kids cannot go to school. My family is poor now. I have to repay my loan, but now I can't.
Toward economic development, cultural preservation, health care, education, and environmental sustainability.
The 33-year-old man was attacked by rioters without any reason.
I didn't feel right and tried to avoid them, but a woman saw me and told a man. The man came right up to me and slashed me.
This important resolution reminds the world and China of our commitment to the people of Tibet.
The artery in his neck was exposed and he was on the verge of death when he was hospitalized.
Our society is so good nowadays. Such an incident should never have happened. Innocent people were harmed and cars were burned. We hope the government severely punishes those mobs.
And I yield back the balance of my time.
In an overwhelming show of support, House members approved Speaker Nancy Pelosi's bill 413 to 1. Texan Ron Paul the only no votes.